This is a tutorial of song import on Worshipsong Band. Um, this process has been made a lot easier over the years of the release, so I'm going to show you how to do it nowadays in the most quick way. For this exercise, I'm going to import these stems from a song called Alive. It's right here. This song's already on the site, so I'm just using this song to show you. If you look on our website here, you'll notice that I have these list of standard names for tracks. If you want to use these names, it pretty much matches everything that we put in our store, and it also gives you a nice track order where you have the click on the left, the rhythm sections, and then on out to the guitars, keys, and then vocals on the right. And so what I recommend you do is use these standard names for your tracks, and that way everything is consistent. But you don't have to. You can really name them whatever you want, and I'll show you later where you can change all this if you want to. So the way the importer works now, the basic process is you zip up the stems, you drag them into Worshipsong Band as a zip file, and then it imports them, and it creates another zip file, which is the imported song in your library, and then you edit it within Worshipsong Band. So to make this the most seamless, the way you would do it is this. You go to each stem, and before you put it in the zip file, you just rename it to what you want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and use these standard names, and so on. And I'm just going to rename them all. Now, before I completed that process in this folder right here, and I'm going to delete this file real quick, so ignore that. Anyway, in this folder right here, you see I've renamed all the stems. You'll notice these names match those standard names. And so the next step is I'm going to zip all this up. Now, you'll notice I have a chord chart and an icon in here. This chord chart is just a PDF. You might want to, you can put any files you want inside these zip files in the means of distributing them to end users. So in this case, I'm throwing a PDF chord chart in there. It's not the one that's going to actually display in Worshipsong Band. I'll show you later how you do that. I'm just going to say send to compressed zip folder. Windows is going to go ahead and compress all that data into a zip folder. So we'll let that finish. Okay, Windows has created this file called bgv.zip. You might not see this icon. You might see just a little folder icon here instead. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename that alive.zip. So in this case, Alive is going to be the name of the song in my library. And inside of there are all those WAV files. So the next step is pretty simple. I just take this file and drag it on top of Worshipsong Band and let go of my cursor, and it says import file, do you want to convert this? It will take some time. Continue. At this point, you go ahead and say yes, okay. And what you'll see is that it'll start popping up these windows. You don't do anything with these windows. That it's just output from this program that's doing an audio conversion for you. Now, if these stems had been MP3s or OGs or FLACs instead of waves, it wouldn't actually convert the audio. It would just stick them in the zip file in your library and be done. In this case, since you've used waves, it's assuming that you want to use MP3s. It's going to go ahead and import and convert and import those for you. So if you didn't want to use MP3s at this stage, you just would pre-convert these using another tool or something like that. We've built this importer into Worshipsong Band to save you the trouble of having to use another audio converter. And we'll let that finish. So it's finished, and what happens is it says Song Alive should now appear in your library. So it's finished the import. When I click OK, I see Alive comes into my library up here on the top line. And what I can do now just to see what I got is I can just go ahead and show the song here. you'll notice it's got all the tracks, it's used all the names that I gave it in my WAV files, and it's put them in the standard order. So at this point I could go ahead and just listen to the song. I'm not going to listen to the whole thing. So the song's in there, it's got all the multi-tracks. At this point, if you didn't want to use any other features like looping, you could actually be done and you could just take the song and distribute it to your devices. In this case, I'll show you the next steps, which is to add the sections and to add the chords. So the way we do this is when we have the song open and we have Worshipsong as the window with focus, we press E. And so E brings up the song editor. And so the way the song editor works, there's really a couple things to it. I'm just going to resize Worshipsong here also. Get back to my song editor. So this is what we call the tracks.txt file, which is inside of the zip file. And you can edit the file right here from within Worshipsong. So you'll see, for instance, I've got my tracks, and I've got the MP3s I converted, and I've got the names. So let's say I had a track misnamed. I could just rename it right here by typing in a new name. So let's say I wanted this effects to say something else, like keys 2. I could just type keys 2 in there, press the save reload button right here. And what that does is it basically reloads the song and gives me and re-puts it into the program to make sure that that when I loaded this song it would work. So I can always edit the song that way, which is actually pretty convenient. And once you understand this file format, it's very fast. In this case, for the sections, we've actually added another editor which gives you a little more convenience, and I'm going to show you that. And that editor is called the section editor. And so the sections are the information that divides the song up into beats so that you know, so that you can loop the song or you can skip sections. Or you can jump over a verse or something like that. And it's also the sections are used so that the chord charts can come up in the right place and the lyric display. So this is really the song's markers or timeline information. So the first thing I want to do with these sections is I want to get the tempo of the song accurate. Right now when I imported the song, it didn't know the tempo of the song, so it just assumed 60 beats per minute. So what I'm going to do in this case is actually measure a tempo to get it more accurate, and let me show you that. So in this case I've shown another window. This is called Mixmeister BPM Analyzer. It's a really cool free tool that gives you very accurate tempos. You can get the tempo from your DAW, you can get it from any other tool that can just analyze your audio library and give you a tempo. So I'm going to drag the MP3, which is the original track that came with the song, onto this tempo analyzer. And it said that the tempo is 131.98. So I'm just going to round up in that case. So I have two choices here. I'm going to close that. So I'm going to call that 132. I could just go in here and type 132 and hit save reload. Or in this particular case, the tempo can be entered with a section editor. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that now. So just remember that number 132. So what I'm going to do now is hit this button called Edit Sections. Okay. So this is just a little editor to help you edit the song timeline that we've put in. And the way this editor works, it's actually kind of cool, is you make edits in here, and it edits this section in your text file for you as you go. So all this editor is doing is giving you a graphical way to edit this text. And so as we take this further, then eventually you might not need to edit the text file anymore. But for now, we just do it side by side. So the first thing I'm going to do is put that number 132. I'm going to move this back like this. I'm going to put that number 132 in here that I just measured and hit enter. You'll notice my tempo changed to 132, and I've got 132 here in my file. So it's just editing that file for me. So the next thing I want to do is start to add sections to this song. So I'm going to, one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit the T button. What the T button does is instead of displaying time in this little blue, it displays beats. So then I'm going to hit play. So at the beginning of the song, I had a count in. So it had an 8-beat count in. So what I'm going to do is, in here, I'm just going to hit plus to add a section, so I have something to demarcate the end, and I'm going to say 8 beats. That's my 8-beat count in. The next thing was an intro. I don't know how many beats that is, but I'll just go ahead and listen. You can just count. So that started on 56, so my intro was 48 beats, because the first one was 8. So that's my intro. Now we're doing a verse, so I'll put just like V1 in here. You'll notice as I do that, all it's doing is it's just creating this section for me. So every time I hit enter or click away from a field, it just types it in there. So if I didn't want to use this GUI, I could just go in here and type this data instead, and do it what I call the old way. Anyway, so you just continue, you go through the whole song, you figure out where the sections are, you enter it, and then you have your markers in the song. At the end of this, you hit the save reload button, and what happens is that just reloads everything back in. If you don't hit save reload and you close the program right now, these edits won't be saved, just as if you had typed them and not saved them. So once you've used the section editor, you have to use save reload. The other things you can do on this section editor, you can change the time signature, which is used if you're using the built-in metronome, or you can change the key of the song. Anyway, so once again, cookbook style, I finished this earlier, so I'm just going to hit E again to close the song editor. So this is the song I had before this one, actually, where I had finished all that work before. So this is how I laid out the song, basically. That's how I ended up with the sections. Anyway, so now this song is done if you don't want to use chords or you don't want to use lyrics. But if you do want to use chords and lyrics, then the next section will show you how to do that. And basically what that is you're populating this chord section here with chord charts for the sections. You'll notice sometimes in here you'll see times and sometimes you'll see beats. They're equivalent to each other, so you can switch it back and forth to either one with that section editor just by typing into it, basically. and whichever one you type last, that's what it'll use. Anyway, for the chords, so we've got an intro section, we've got a verse section, and so on. And the chords are just a text format, basically, that looks like what you would have in a text chord chart. So this is a chord editor, so this could be any text editor that you have, and basically the chords might look like this. So I'm just going to copy these chords from here and paste them in here. And you can go ahead and edit the chords in here by just typing if you want. So if I wanted to add chords for that verse section, I could just go verse, and then start putting in the chords, like whatever they are. In this case, I had just worked from the chord chart. So that's how the beats work. So I've just added the chord chart for the verse. And you can see that in the program here. After I import it, the chords just show up in there. There's a couple other things about the chord chart. So one thing I notice about this is I have the song in G here, but it's actually in A because that's my chord chart. So again, I can just either switch to A up here, or I can just go in my section editors and say, oh, this is actually in A. So you'll notice it says A there now.
Celebrate, he is alive.
So if I look at that verse section, it's 48 beats. And if I were doing lyrics, I probably wouldn't want all 6 of those lines together. So what I can do is this. After the first 3 lines, I can add what we call a lyric break in here. I just type that in, lyric break 24. That doesn't change the way the chord chart looks, but I'm going to hit the L button here. The L button basically previews what the lyric display would look like. So now I'll just play starting from that section. Clouds give way, angels sing and celebrate, he is alive. Oceans roar, mountains bow, love laid down, joy poured out, he is alive. Alive. So that's how you would divide up the lyrics, basically. So what I'm going to do then is just from this chord chart before, basically, I'll finish putting everything in. Okay, so when I'm done, the chord chart basically looks like this. Intro, lyric break, chorus, lyric break. So it's really just a text chord chart where you put the chords over the lines. And so they always work like chords, lyrics, chords, lyrics, chords, lyrics, all the way down. And then you just add in those lyric breaks wherever you want things to break. And that's it. So these are pretty simple. And then you can just go ahead and click on the sections of the song here. I'll hide that lyric display. See what they look like. So at this point, you're actually completely done with the song. It's ready to distribute. And so that's the last thing I'm going to show you is how you would take this song and use it on another device. So in this case here, I'm looking at my library folder, which is this folder right here, Worshipsong Band Library. This folder was installed when I installed the program. The song I imported is called WSB Alive, and you can rename this whatever you want. And I'm going to put this song on my iPad. So I've installed the iPad version of Worshipsong Band on my iPad, and it's connected to iTunes, and that's right here. So I'm going to click on my iPad icon here. Over here I see apps. If I scroll down, I see worship song. I click that, and you'll see right here a list of songs. So this is just basically the same contents of the library folder that I have on my Windows PC, but it's in iTunes. And so if I want to put that song on there, I just take the zip file, drag it into iTunes. iTunes said it's copying to my iPad, and it shows up. And then the final step is if I want to see it on my iPad, which you can't see, I just run worship song, and it shows up in my library, and I'm ready to use it. And so the process for a Android phone is very similar. So in this case, I have my Galaxy tab hooked up. I'm going to go ahead and click on tablet here. When Worship Song installs, it gives you this folder, Worshipsong Band. And this is my library folder. So all I do is I take the song, I drag it into that folder here in Windows. Now that song's in my library. So if you're managing the storage on your device or something, you can just move songs in and out of this library. There's no cloud required or anything like that. You just manage the list of files. Then when you run worship song, those are in there. And anyway, so that's the whole process of taking a song, importing it into Worshipsong Band, and then using that song and deploying it to your devices or using it on Windows or any other PC.